Hi, welcome to my next tutorial series on Angular 4, and today we will be looking into how to create Angular 4 forms. So we will study a bit about forms. As we know that forms are one among the most essential parts of any web page application or web application, where a user can enter his or her details, and these forms then can be processed. They can be first validated, then processed. So we'll look at how we can create a form in Angular 4 or even Angular 2. Now when we talk about Angular 4 or Angular 2 forms, then there are different approaches in creating the forms. So let us look at it. So in Angular, if we divide the approach for creating the form or different way in which we can create the Angular form, then basically it can be categorized into two parts. Okay, one is the template driven form and another is the reactive form. So in this session we'll look at template driven form, and yet there is another approach which is a part of reactive form approach using form builder. Okay, so if you have already have an experience of working on HTML forms, you know how forms are organized, how they are structured. They are all the form control elements are nested within forms tags. Okay, before we go into it, let us look at some forms building blocks which are common to both template driven form as well as the reactive form. So before this, when we talk about template driven form, this uses forms module. We have to import forms module inside our app module, application module, the root module at least. And if we are using reactive form, then we'll see in my next video that if we have to create reactive form, we have to import reactive forms module. Now coming back to forms building blocks, so these are different blocks of a form which is common to both template driven form as well as reactive form. That is form control, which we'll see in this session itself, form group, that also you'll see in this session itself, and there is form array. So basically the units are form control. Each control is defined as a form control, and these controls can be grouped as a form group, and even we can have the controls or groups as an array which can be indexed, so that these we will see later on. Now let's come back straight away to the code. Okay, I have started my server, and I assume that you have also started your server using the ng-serve from the Angular CLI. And so here I have the bare minimum code in my app.component, and TS TypeScript, and in HTML I just have the title. So if I run it, so I get the title as Angular forms. Now let us start creating forms. Now before that, come to app module and make sure that you have this forms module imported, and this is a part of Angular forms. Okay, and in the imports array you have to mention this forms module, then only you can use the forms components and directives, whatever is available. Okay, now we come to HTML, and we'll create a very generic, a very simple form out here. And I have also included since like the controls looks very generic, so just to beautify it a little, I have included bootstrap. That is the easiest one to use actually. The bootstrap means CSS. So if you go to index.html, so you can download bootstrap, and there is also an approach in which you can have the Angular's bootstrap also included, but I have used a very simple approach. You can use the CDN URL also over here. So inside assets folder, CSS folder, I have got this bootstrap min.css. So just to beautify it a little, and I find Bootstrap more simpler to use than any other framework, so that's why I've used Bootstrap. In fact, many developers, they prefer using Bootstrap for the demo purpose. It's quick, it's easy. Now if you are creating Bootstrap, then first thing you can do is wrap everything inside a div and give the class name as the Bootstrap available class, that is the container. And if you don't want to use Bootstrap, it is not necessary. It is just to beautify that I am using Bootstrap. If you are already a CSS expert, then you can have your own custom CSS, right? Okay, so everything is inside this div, even the title. Then I will create form. Okay, then I'll say class is equal to form group. Okay, here even if I don't give it is okay. Let me start with the simple one. So slash form. So whatever class is required, we'll just give it as we go. So let us create another div. The way we structure it in what do we say, in Bootstrap. Okay, so here I will give class is equal to a Bootstrap class, say form group, and then close this div. Okay, and inside this div, say I take a label, and here I say first name, okay, slash label, and then I will give an input control. Let me give it in the next line for the sake of readability. Input type equals text, and here class I will let me give as, that is the Bootstrap class, that is called form control. Okay, so if you simply run it right now just to check if it is getting applied, okay, so we see it is here, it is appearing. So now I can simply copy paste this just to save time. Let me copy this, paste, 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 paste. Okay, so this is first name, so here I'll say last name. Okay, and let us keep this as, what do you say, another detail I can have is, okay, let us have email, a very generic form I am making, the minimal information that we have already. Okay, first name, last name, email. Then we can have say something more about the user. So instead of type text, let me take say radio button. Okay, class will be form control. Now value is equal to, say value is equal to, say this radio button will be the, it will determine, it will be the gender or sex of the person. Okay, so let me put over here sex, and value will be male or female. Okay, so let me copy paste this. Okay, and this one let me take as say country. It will be a drop down. Okay, say I'll take this as country, like the user can just select the country to which he or she belongs. So for the sake of simplicity, I'll only type few countries rather than typing the entire list of countries. So let me name it as select. Okay, and slash select, say option, sorry, did a mistake. Let me undo this. Yeah, now this is okay. Option, I can choose say value is equal to, say I type India, and label also will be India, and slash option. Okay, now let's just copy paste this and change the value. So I'll just take 4 values, 2, 3, 4, and this tab you can adjust. Okay, let me not be bothered about this tabbing and this right now, but in an actual code you should make sure that the tabbings are proper. Okay, now let me change the values, say UK, then here I'll take USA, okay, and here say I take Japan, and say Japan. Okay, so we have a drop down, we have a radio button, we have an email, and in fact over here let me give something more. So see, I can give the name city name. This will be city. Okay, then this will be say street, say address line 1, I can say line 1 or street, whatever suits. Okay, fine. Now let us come and view the form. Okay, so we have this entire chunk of form ready. Okay, see, this entire chunk of form is ready now, and finally we should also have a button. So the most important thing we are forgetting, that it should be the button. There should be a button as well. That should be the submit button. Input type equals submit. Okay, so now you get this button. Okay, I'll just close this. Yeah, so you see this submit button. Okay, let's style this button also. So class is equal to, let's give a bootstrap class. So let us give button and btn hyphen primary. There are different buttons, so I'm just taking the primary button. So I'll get a button like this. Okay, now if we try to select a radio button right now, you'll see that both get selected. Okay, the reason is because we have to give a name to the radio button. Okay, now coming back, our form is ready. We'll add some more elements if required, but for the time being, let's move on to what is template driven form. Okay, so the difference between template driven form and reactive form is that in template driven form, it depends solely on the template structure, the HTML structure. Okay, here we define everything, while in a reactive form it is more dependent on the component class. We define a model. It's actually model based. The reactive form is more of model based, which we'll see in the next tutorial. Okay, so this is the difference. Like this is template based and that is model based. So to start with, we have to give this form some name, some identifier. So whenever we are taking a Angular form, so implicitly it also that when I mention the word implicit, let me tell you that many directives are just implicitly created over here in these forms, while in reactive we can explicitly define controls and groups as well. So it will be more clear when we do this model driven form and when we compare it with this. So to start with this template driven form, let us give this form a name. A name has to be given. So implicitly ng form directive has already been injected into this. Now to refer to that, we just need to say hash When we say hash, it is actually an identifier we are giving to the control, so, or a id we are giving to the control. So let me name it as profile form is equal to, this will store the reference of your ng form. As I mentioned that ng form is a implicit directive that is already provided by the Angular framework when you are creating a form. Okay, so this already has it. Now we can also have an event. When a user tries to submit this form, then there is an event fired called ng-submit. So you can assign a listener for this event or a function, your own defined function. So this is an event, so it will be written in round parenthesis. So I'll name it as form submit. So this is a custom function I am declaring, and here you can pass this value. So what is the name of this form? The name of this form is profile form dot value. I'll pass it. So I have to declare this in the component. So declare is that declare this as a method. Let me make it public. You can make private as well. Form submit, and here say I say data or form data, I can name it. Okay, just simply let me name it as data or any appropriate name that you wish. Okay, and return type is void. Okay, so just to check, let us say console.log, say data and the value data. Now let us run this and just open the console and check. Let me do one thing. Let me give some background color because it is white. Okay, first let's check, then we'll change the background color. So say for example, now I enter something, say I am touched. Okay, now if I submit, so you see that this when I'm saying console.log data, so the value of the data is coming over here as an object. It is an object, so nothing is there in the object. I have no information about any of my controls in the object. Okay, so right now I don't have any information, no information is coming. Now because these controls are not yet registered, this form is not yet informed that these controls are a part of this form. Okay, so that needs to be mentioned. So that can be done via, means it can be qualified, it can be made eligible by providing a directive called ngModel. Once you provide the directive ngModel and also provide a name, so it is dependent on these two factors. You have to give some name toward this. So let me give this the name as fname and ngModel. Okay, then this gets registered to this form. Okay, so I'll do this for other controls as well. Okay, all the controls that I have. For email, then for city, and then I'll change the name. Let me first type it. Email, city, this is address, line 1, so add line 1, and then we have this here, take the same name. Okay, so I give the name So then for the remaining form or remaining controls also we do the same. So let us name this as country. So and okay, I think we have to make changes over here. So L name, then this will be email, then this will be city. Okay, I think we are done. Okay, here we need to change. Okay, now let us click and check. Okay, so I'll fill up my detail. Okay, then I will say some street. Okay, so I'll select mail, then I'll select my country, say India, and now if I say submit, so now you see over here, let me increase the size a bit, okay, of the console. Now you see the object, it is coming as an object, so whatever is the name we have given, that becomes the key, and whatever value we entered, that becomes the value. So we get the entire thing over here. Okay, fine. So it's very simple, it just follows the Angular 1 approach. So we have to qualify it as a model, ngModel, then we can get that form. Okay, now say for example, if at the base I just write a span tag /span, and I can do a binding also. So name of the form is say profile form dot value, and I can use a JSON pipe just to test. Okay, so you'll see that the moment it loads, so below you'll see this JSON pipe. When I put a JSON pipe, all of this is getting serialized as a JSON. So whatever I enter, say I entered Junaid, okay, see we get the all these values, we get the key and value as a JSON. Okay, now say over here just below the name, just to demonstrate, I am writing here, let me put another span tag. Okay, and here I'll give some value. Okay, so not yet, just a sec, /span, I have not completed it yet. Okay, now this ngModel, this is just to qualify this particular control as I mentioned for this form, right? But ngModel you can even use it this way as well. If you want to make a two-way binding, you can use it for binding also. So if you want to do make a two-way binding, then you can use this structure. This structure generally we call it a banana in a box structure. So here if I give this some name ngModel and I give it some value, say the value over here is say first name, you can even give f name also, but purposely I am taking a different value so that it could be understood that we can take two different values as well, if not same, two different variable name. So this and this is different, is not related to name at all. So if I say first name, now let us see. So I am displaying the first name over here also in span tag, and here I am taking ngModel like this in the structure of banana in a box. Now let us come. Now just start typing the name. So you see it is a two-way binding. So whatever I type over here, it gets reflected over there also. See, so this is a two-way binding. Okay, so this is also one way we can bind to a form, to a template driven form. Now if you remove this structure, just remove the parenthesis, inner parenthesis. Okay, so you will see that it is no more a two-way binding. Once you remove the inner parenthesis, it is only one-way binding. Now I have to give some default value to this. I take this first name, I come back to the component. Suppose you have to give some default value to the form. Say you have to fill a very huge form, okay, for something, for some kind of payment or shopping, online shopping you are doing. So there you'd prefer that the form should be auto filled, right? So in that case, here we are hard coding, but that can come from the service, like say Amazon or any other site you are shopping. So they already have your detail. So once your user ID, once a service, your application hits the service with your user ID, it will fetch all your details and it will be populated. So here we are just making it hard coded. Say here I'll say, okay. Now if I run it, see, it comes pre-populated, and same way you'll see that this is also binded to that variable. So it is just one time binding, it is not two-way binding. That is why whatever was the initial value it took, but after that if I make any change, it will not be reflected because I am not making it a two-way binding, right? So this is the difference. Okay, so it depends on your requirement whether you want to make it one-way binding or two-way binding. So if you want to make two-way binding, you have to go for this banana in a box structure, and one-way binding means just square brackets. So that will do. Okay, so this is about your template driven form. Now one more thing, like say for example this email, city, address line 1, and even country, these are all part of address. This can be grouped under address. Okay, so we'll see how we can subgroup it. Okay, okay, I think here we have a missing div. Just a sec, div, should close the div tag. This is the open div tag, this is the close div tag, and this should also be wrapped in a div tag. So class is equal to form group. Actually we have missed this out. Form group, okay. Now let us see if it is not broken. Okay, this is fine. Okay, now let us subgroup the address part. So we'll just take country from here till this part. Let us cut it and we'll place it just below the address. So till here we have the address block. Okay, from email, starting with email. Okay, let's consider email also as a part of address. So here let us create div, then there is a directive to subgroup it, that is called ngModelGroup, and you can give it any name to this directive. Let me give the name as ss, okay, address, and then I need to close this div. Carefully close it at the proper position so that the template doesn't lose its structure. So here we go. Now let's see if it is coming fine. Yeah, it seems to come fine. Now if I enter, say, all the details, okay, say some street, country, say India, okay, mail, and now let's say submit. Okay, now just observe the console. Okay, so if you observe the console, let me expand it. So you see that f name, l name, sex, all these things are coming as a key value pair. Only address is another object. Address now comes as another object, and if you expand the address, then you see that address line 1, city, country, and email comes. Okay, So this way we have been able to subgroup it. Okay, so this way we can subgroup it by using this directive called ngModelGroup. Okay, so you can use as many ngModelGroup as you want to subgroup it. Okay, so this is how we can create a form structure for template driven form. Fine. Now this can be then sent to the server side. Okay, so in my later tutorials I will even demonstrate how we can send this data to the server side and the data gets stored over there, so just stay tuned for that. Okay, now when we create this this group, when we group it, so this can also be sent as a nested JSON structure. Now we also have this validation on the form. Okay, we'll see how we can validate this form. So if we just click on this inspect element, so whether it be it a template driven form or any kind of form, or say reactive form which is a model driven form, so both of them implicitly injects a class, some classes, which is important in the sense that you can style your element controls based on whether it is valid or invalid, or it has already been touched, or the value has been changed. So let us look at it now. See, if I select this, so you see that apart from the class that we have injected, there are some other class called ng-untouched, ng-pristine, ng-valid. Now what are these class? So let's understand this a little bit. So this we have come to the validation part. So as we saw that there is ng-untouched. Okay, sorry, I need to correct this. It should be ng-touched. Okay, fine. So untouched and touched class is injected when you load the page, when you have not clicked on any control. So it has a class ng-untouched. Once you click on the control, it changes to ng-touched. And when you change the value, if you don't change the value, it remains by default remains in ng-pristine. ng-pristine class is attached to it in the class list. But once you change the value, it becomes ng-dirty. And if you have validated that field, suppose if you mark that field as required, then ng-valid will be there. And if the field becomes invalid, like you have not input in value after touching it, then it becomes ng-invalid. Okay, so to understand it, let us come back over here. So just observe this, or let me do one thing. Let me put it over here only. So this first name, let me give this some ID. As we know that in Angular we can just give an ID. Say, let me give the ID as fname field. Okay, so this will have the ID fname field. So in the span I can write fname dot class list. Okay, fname field dot class list. And let us serialize it as JSON. So I'll just put a pipe over here, JSON, and let us do one thing. Let us cut it and put it over here, remove it from here and put it somewhere on top, because it will not be visible when we are typing. Okay, so what it will do, it will display all the class list, so we can view like how it is changing. So see, when it is loaded, when the form has been rendered for the first time, so these are the classes that has been applied. So this class is what we have applied, and this is what the Angular framework has applied: ng-untouched, ng-pristine and ng-valid. So the moment I touch it, Okay, so you see this is changing, this has become untouched. Okay, while these two remains unchanged. So the moment I click on it, it will become untouched. And if I change the value, so it becomes ng-dirty, it is no more ng-pristine. And if I put the value back, okay, so you see only ng-valid has not changed. Okay, so even if you put the value back, it is still remaining in the ng-dirty state because it has already been changed somehow. Okay, and if I don't put anything, still it is showing ng-valid. The reason is I have to go there, back to the HTML, and here I have to mark this as, let me write it in next line, required. If you mark this as required, then your ng-valid will become invalid in case if no value is being given. Okay, so now ng-untouched, ng-pristine, ng-valid. Now let us click on it. So this is now touched. Okay, see ng-touched and ng-dirty. Okay, now if I delete all, so it becomes ng-invalid. Fine. So we get the concept of this ng-valid, ng-untouched, ng-pristine. Okay, now there is no use if we cannot visually indicate this to the user. We know that internally this is happening, but how will a user know it? So we have to add some kind of visual indication. So let's quickly go to our component, and over here I will just add a styles array. So in this styles array, let me give a backticks and let me write over here. So let's see ng-valid and ng-invalid. Okay, so input control. So we have a input control, input dot, the class is ng-invalid. So ng-invalid will be, say I'll give a border of say 7 pixel. Okay, solid and red. Okay, and for valid also we have to give something. If it is valid, it will be green. So what I do is, if it is ng-valid, it should be green. So just demonstrating for valid, and for ng-dirty and ng-pristine it will be the same way. So I'll just demonstrate it for valid and invalid. So green. So all the input controls which has got this class ng-valid, make it green, 7 pixel thickness, and let me make it border left or border right, whatever way you want to decorate it. Say border left. Okay, or if you just say border, then all the 4 corners will get changed, right? So border left. Now let us look at it. Okay, oh, let us, okay, so this is it. Now you see that all are getting affected. Okay, because all are input and they all have this. Okay, so here they all have the same class attached, but here since I made it required, that is why it is changing. But here it will never become invalid because I have not marked this as required. Now if I have to just target this field, so if you already have a good idea of CSS, you can filter it out. Say for example name is fname, right? So you can come over here, you have say input invalid, and we can filter it out so that it gets applied only to that particular input field where we are making a change. So I'll remove this and just use this CSS, that is the add name attribute. If I just leave it like this, then again entire control that has got the attribute name will get affected. So let me filter it out like this, f name, and if it is invalid, if this control has got class invalid, ng-invalid, so we only have one control with attribute name fname. Okay, so only that will get affected. So same thing we do over here as well. So now let's save it, and now let's check it. Okay, so now you see other fields are not getting affected. So this way I can check whether it is valid or invalid. Okay, so this is how we can apply the styles. We can utilize the implicitly injected class or implicitly attached class to it to give a visual indication. Okay, even you can have you can even give some kind of message as well if you want. So let me come to component.html, and over here say I put one more div. So div class is equal to say alert alert. I think there is one danger. I'm not so good at bootstrap, so let's see if this comes, or we'll just have a simple div. Okay, and within this div, if I give a message that name is required, okay, say name is required. So first let me check if it is coming. Okay, this is, yeah, this has been applied. So now we'll only display it when it becomes invalid, but right now this is invalid, so it should not get displayed. Okay, so here I can mention, I can utilize that directive hidden. Okay, if hidden is true, then it will be hidden. If it is false, then it will be shown. So here I can write the f name field is the ID of this, so I'll just take hidden. I'll write within this expression dot, it will be hidden should be true. If it is valid, it should be hidden, so valid. So f name field dot valid, so it will check whether it is valid or not. So let it get refreshed. Okay, let me see if I have saved it. Sorry. Okay, I have saved it. We also need to bind it to the model, otherwise this will not propagate the change. Okay, so ngModel, we have to write it this way, otherwise this it will not reflect whether it is valid or invalid over here in this field. So once we reference its model to its ID, then through the ID we can check whether it is valid or invalid. So I think that is the problem, that is the only issue. See, now it happens. Now if I just make it invalid, then this appears, and if I make it valid, it goes. So that is how we can check for its validation in template driven form. So fine, that was all for this session, and in the next session we'll look at a few more custom validations and model driven forms. So thank you for watching my video, and bye bye.